So earlier this week, Riot put up a couple of job postings searching for game designers to help work on Valorant. Now, ordinarily, this wouldn't even be newsworthy in the slightest. What makes these postings special is that they were specifically catered to the console version of Valorant. It's been rumored for some time, but it does finally seem as if Riot are going to allow controllers to play on, well, controllers. The question is whether that's actually a good thing. So, yeah, let's start with the postings themselves. Back in 2020, right after Valorant's closed beta came out, The Express quoted former game director Joe Ziegler as saying that Riot were exploring the possibility of releasing their shooter on other platforms after they'd finished polishing up the PC launch. Fast forward 2.5 years, we're seeing job postings live and in print asking for candidates to think about how they'd, quote, transform Valorant into the definitive tactical shooter for consoles. Now, I know what you're thinking. Console? Isn't the whole point of Valorant supposed to be that it's sweaty and CSGO-esque and the place where the Shrouds and the Tenses are styling on kids nowadays? Like, how are you supposed to play Jett with a f***ing controller? And more importantly, why would you want to? I don't want to conjure the whole debate here, but for those who genuinely aren't aware, the accepted wisdom is that aiming with one's thumbs is just inherently more limiting than aiming with one's entire arm, wrist, and hand. I'm just thinking about it, right? The range of this is a lot smaller than all of this. If you're interested in a deeper and more technical explanation of this, check out the cracked we did on aim assist and the mechanics of mouse aiming vis-a-vis controller aiming. Now, a lot of you may not actually realize this, but up until very recently, PC gaming has just never ever really been big in North America compared to other markets in the world. It wasn't really until Fortnite and the streaming boom that it gave way to that kids in North America started noticeably veering away from Xbox and PlayStation and focusing instead on building PCs and getting really, really good with mouse and keyboard. Prior to that, it was all Call of Duty all the time. I came up on 1.6, and even I lived and breathed Modern Warfare back in 2009 when I was 16. I was a cool, edgy PC aimer back when that was not common in NA, and even I was calling in nukes and flexing my 2.0 KD with the rest of them. This is also one of the reasons why Counter-Strike is, and always has been, way bigger in Europe than in North America. Consoles were just never really all the rage over there. Those Danes never got sidetracked by turtle beaches and quick scoping montages. Those motherfuckers grew up on Dust 2. The point of all of this is to impress upon you that PC gaming is honestly still a relatively recent phenomenon in North America, and to contextualize why it is that releasing a AAA+ title on console can still allow you to reach an unimaginably large audience here in North America. If and when this port were to occur, there would be literally countless COD bros, Madden fiends, and literal actual 10-year-olds who would flock to Valorant as soon as mom said that it's their turn to play on the Xbox. This is exactly what happened with Minecraft, and it quite literally became one of the biggest video games on the planet. It's also what Valve tried to do with Counter-Strike, but were never really able to pull it off. Yes, there was such a thing as Counter-Strike on the original Xbox and CSGO on newer Xboxes, and they were fucking awful in the best ways possible. Mind you, this was in the era before mouse and keyboard on console was really a thing, but you can imagine how big a title like Valorant could actually get on current generation consoles. And this makes sense, because we know that the bigger that Riot gets, the more they want to turn their titles into mainstream media empires. It isn't just world songs and esports tournaments, it's things like Arcane and Players. And we all know that to become truly normie, you gotta get your game on console. That said, there are some wrinkles that Riot will have to iron out. Running a premier esports grade shooter on both console and PC is no easy feat. There are genuinely some platform discrepancies that they're going to have to take into consideration, the most obvious of which is input. Some of you may not know this, but back in the early days of Rainbow Six Siege, which in my opinion is pretty much the closest analog to what Valorant will eventually become should consoles enter the mix, used to have 2 pro leagues and world championships, one for PC and one for Xbox. Eventually, Ubisoft decided to scrap the Xbox one, not only because having one league is just cleaner and better, but again, because the skill ceiling on mouse and keyboard is just higher and more fun to watch. Several console pros did switch over, some of whom became massively successful, like Laxing, Skies, or Bosco, and Professional Siege became this one unified free-for-all. The reason I'm saying all of this is because it's very unlikely in the year of our Lord 2022 that Riot would adopt such a dichotomized structure. Imagine having 2 champions, one for the serious PC players, and another one where dudes try to play Jet with analog sticks. That said, they would have a split player base, the casuals on console and the sweats on PC. From issues of crossplay and auto-aim to mouse and keyboard on console being paramount to cheating to just plain old elitism. It is a nightmare. A lucrative nightmare that will almost inarguably benefit Valorant in the long run, but a nightmare nonetheless. Which brings us to the hairiest and most interesting of said obstacles: balance. Siege has been struggling with this for years. There are literally guns that are considered S tier on PC, but whose recoil renders them unusable on console. And while there are absolutely esports where the boys on the sticks hold their own against the mouse and keyboard players just fine, like Apex Legends, I think it's fair to say that that will probably never be the case in Valorant. So long as Riot never implements any sort of auto-aim, you'll almost be guaranteed to need a mouse to be competitive. It's the same reason no one's really played Counter-Strike with a controller in the past 20 plus years. The game is just so focused around crosshair placement and recoil control, it's just even controller players use mouse and keyboard. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see how Riot reconciles these issues and the extent to which they feel they need to when designing additional agents and abilities. Do they construct 2 different aiming infrastructures or unify them both into one whole? Now, I should also say that this has all probably been in the back of Riot's mind since Valorant's inception. It's safe to assume that they always knew they were going to, at the very least, eyeball a console release and are preparing for it accordingly. Hence the job postings. Not only do they have a near infinite amount of resources, but Valorant's whole shtick is that they learned from everybody else's mistakes and created the perfect shooter with 128 tick, a real anti-cheat, great visibility, and absolutely zero peeker's advantage. Although the jury is still really out on that last one. So yeah, it'll be genuinely interesting to see how Riot chooses to smooth out these platform discrepancies. I have zero doubt that Riot can in fact create the definitive tac shooter for console. I just want to see how they do it and what it will spell for Valorant as a whole. League of Legends on console, you think it can happen? I wonder if it's like playing Diablo on controller. I mean, when they released Diablo 3 on consoles, people were like, what? Because for like 25 plus years, Diablo has always been a PC game. So, but it turned out to be better. The biggest issue, man, is the camera, is the edge pan. And right, you need to lock your camera to your champion basically in order to make it playable, and that's like a whole other vibe, right?